Alright gentlemen, I will need you on your best behavior, all 99.8% of you, because we are no longer a gentleman's club for all 5 ladies that are watching this video.
How you doing?
And while you're at it, leave a comment down below how you got into 3D printing. Today we are going to try and tackle the VFA issue that is on this Prusa Core One. Like you can see right over here, we have a severe issue on this structural profile. So first of all, after the launch of the previous video, my DMs absolutely flooded with users that already have the Prusa Core One sharing the same frustrations that I could see on my unit, which is going to be the VFA issues. I have been sent to multiple threads on the Prusa forum, also on some Reddit threads, and I could see that this is definitely not an isolated issue. Even some content creators reached out to me to say that they have the same experience like I have on my machine. So it looks like we have a structural problem. The weird thing is, according to Prusa, this is not what they are experiencing at the HQ, and Grant from 3D Musketeers can confirm that the units that he has seen at the printer HQ were not that bad like we have right over here in the shop. They were actually pretty good results. So what is going to be the issue? That is what I'm going to try and figure out today. So I have received a bunch of user recommended mods that we should do on the Prusa Core One. I'm going to pick what I think is going to be the best ones in order to fix the VFA issue. But before I tear into the system to start replacing stuff, we are going to start with the most easy stuff, which is going to be belt tension and pulley adjustments. So the first thing we need to do is disable the motors. Now we need to grab the print head and we need to put it right in the back and somewhat in the middle. Right now we have the belt that we can fling right here on the sides. Now we are going to grab our phone, open the Prusa app and do the initial flick to see what the belt tension has settled to after a few hours of print use. And we can see that it dropped to 73 Hertz. So we lost about 10 Hertz in belt tension, which is probably going to be initial belt stretch. This is not uncommon, I think, but yeah. So we can already see we are 10 Hertz too low in comparison when we started tightening these idlers. So this time I'm going to tighten them to what Prusa recommended me, which is going to be 105 Hertz, and then we are also going to try 110 Hertz to see if we can see any noticeable changes in the surface quality of the next print we are going to do. So tightening is actually fairly easy on the Prusa Core One. You just need this thing right over here, then you give it a little righty-tighty. On both sides we do the same thing, a little bit of a righty-tighty. Now you want to make sure that when you do this, the linear rail or the x-axis is still hitting both sides at the same time. So if you can see that one side is going to get a little bit crooked, you need to tighten the side where the gantry is getting pulled away from. So right now I can see that the right side needs a little bit extra tightening, and that is pretty spot on. So I'm going to do the frequency test again to see at what frequency range we are right now. 82, we have a long way to go. I think we got it. Listen to the sound. It is more and more sounding like we are flicking a string instead of a belt. So listen to the sound. "104, and it is saying to me the belt is too tight. Well, this is just what we wanted. So 104 Hertz. Now it's time to set up a print and see if we have any noticeable improvements. So for that we are going to use the Conjure filament we used in the previous video. So the tops we can see right over here all have been printed with the rainbow silk made by Conjure. The company behind Conjure is Cheetobox, by the way. We have a nice selection of PLA silk filaments, and we are going to use PLA silk tricolor. If you like what you see with this filament, there will be a link down below. It is affiliated and I will earn $1 on your purchase. The pricing is going to be the same. Even better, I have a little discount code if you want to buy this filament. Everything is in the description down below. First of all, we need to stab it. Now talking about something positive on the Prusa Core One is going to be filament changes. This system is so well automated, it is really enjoyable to see how this thing is going to change up spools, or if you just want to replace your spool with the same color. You just insert it right over here, and then when it reaches the sensor that is going to be in the tool head, it will start to purge the system automatically once you select what kind of filament you are using. So we have reached the tool head, and like you can see, it just pulled in the filament more. It is homing the axis, and probably right now it is going to ask me in a while what filament we have introduced into the system. Let me set up a print really fast, and then we can see what the result is going to be after we have tightened the belts to 104 Hertz. So we started the Prusa Core One, and the first thing I can see is that when it's doing the very slow travel moves, or just like it's doing now, the very slow print moves, we don't have that loud buzzing noise that we had before with the previous belt tension. So right now it already sounds quieter. Does it mean that we are going to have less VFA? Well, I'm very sorry I didn't film the vibrating noise with the previous belt tension, but you will have to believe me on that one. We got some results on the 104 Hertz belts. We have done a slow and a fast print. Let's take a look how it is comparing against the old stuff. Here we have it, the old belt setting, the new belt setting, and we can see a dramatic change in print quality. It is looking way better than it did before we did the belt tensioning. Now, that being said, we can also see that we have introduced a new problem. We are seeing some more vibration noise. It is not VFA, not sure what this is called. We can also see it on the Sovol SV08. We have some kind of a wavy pattern going on, but still I prefer the wavy pattern way more than I prefer the VFA you can see on this model right over here. So both are printed with the structural profile, and we can finally say that these results are actually acceptable. Then we have the speed version, and on the speed version we can see about the same thing. We can see an improvement, but the VFA is a little bit more noticeable on the speed profile than it is on the structural. Slow profile, fast profile, we can see the slow profile is, in my opinion, looking that every little bit more better than the speed profile, which is actually surprising. So this is really confusing because I said in the previous video that a Core XY, the faster you can print, the better it usually is for VFA artifacting. And we can see actually this time it is the other way around. The higher belt tension with the higher speeds will introduce more VFA than it will do at the lower speed. So if you are a structural boy and you like the slow print speeds, bumping up the belt tension seems to do the trick to get you to acceptable VFA results, while the high speed, it is still worse than what I like to see on a high speed print. Quality seems to be great, but yeah, we can still see definitely a VFA issue. So the next thing we are going to try is another non-destructive mod, which is going to be adjusting the pulleys in relationship with the motor. Apparently, according to a thread that has been sent to me, adjusting the pulleys in height could also reduce the VFA artifacts we can see. So getting them higher or closer, depending on how your belt is riding, is going to be the fix. I have already seen from looking inside, my belts are running on the upper side of the pulley, so I'm going to move them closer to the motor and see what is going to happen. For that, I printed this little tool. This is to remove the rivets that we have pushed around in the Core One. So a little pop with this tool is enough to get the rivets out. I got all the rivets out. Now it's time to remove all the bolts so we can lift up this top head. So we removed all the bolts and little pop rivets, and now we should be able to lift up the complete top side of the Prusa Core One. Just like that, and now we can work on the motors without any problem. And I mean it, this is so cool. Just a few rivets and a few bolts, you get the whole top part out of it, and now you can do your general maintenance just under 2 minutes. Okay, so here we have the two motors. First, we are going to get rid of the belt tension by loosening these two bolts. Okay, so it's probably going to be very hard to see, but what I did is that when the belt is moving over the motor pulley, it is now pretty centered. So we only have the idlers that are doing the the belt positioning, and the motor is actually nice and neutral. And I could hear that before I did the adjustment, we had some belt rattling going on because we had too much idlers and pulleys trying to do the opposite thing, which is probably what the user was expecting, that we have too much opposite forces on the on the belt. So right now, this motor right over here, this pulley is nice and centered. Now we are going to do the same thing on the other side. 104 Hertz. We have done all the things. So we adjusted the pulleys. The belts are perfectly in line with what we did the previous time. Now it's time to fire it up and do what let's call a high-speed print first, so we are done quicker. All right, let's fire it up and do a new print. By the way, I would be super impressed if the fix would be that easy. There is some merit to the story. If you have really terrible aligned pulleys, you can have some artifacts going on just from the belt trying to ride the sides of the pulleys and the idlers. Lube it up real good. The next thing we are going to do is something that is also user recommended, just like all the previous stuff is going to be replacing the GT2 belts with new GT2 belts, but we are going to remove the teeth that are going to run on the smooth idlers. So I'm going to try and remove the teeth as good as possible, and then we are going to run a new test to see if removing the teeth of your belt is going to be the fix. I don't think so, but I'm going to try it anyways. I gave up on the tooth removal belt thingy. I ripped the belt. I'm not going to do it again. It is taking way too long. We are going to come in straight to the new 1.5mm belts and see what that is going to do, because I don't want to redo all that crap again. You can see this printer just exploded. We have to remove everything, the top lids, the side panels, just in order to be able to remove these little motors so we can switch out the pulleys. That and all is not too bad, but I don't want to do it twice. So we are going to jump straight into the belts. I only have one, so it is going to take another week, and this will be just sitting here. I'm so sorry, but for you, just a second.
Joseph, the big boss man himself from Prusa, made a statement in the time we have been waiting that there is indeed an issue with VFA on the Prusa Core One. The issue is not that easy to solve. So yeah, they are definitely aware there is a problem and they are working on it to fix it. So I hope they found a solution. In the meantime, I'm going to enjoy the little bit of coffee I have left, and I will try the VFA trouble solving by changing the belts to the 1.5 GT. So first of all, this is going to be what it looks like in the stock configuration. Then we tensioned our belts at 104 Hz, and we could actually see some improvement in the VFA artifacting right here on this cover. Now we are getting another problem with getting those belts too tight. We are not going to see only VFA, but we are also going to see some noise in this direction, giving it more a bit of a cross hatch kind of a thing. It is more pleasing to the eye, but there is definitely still a problem with the stock configuration and the high torque belts. Then the next thing we did was lube it up real good, and the results are going to be the same. We still have the cross hatching, and we also see the artifacting from the a high belt tension. We also adjusted the pulleys, and then we did it at the speed setting, and we can see that we are still having not so good VFA artifacting even at high speed. So the higher belt tension is going to get worse results in high speeds. So as you might have seen, there is no real fix without doing some major disassembly. We saw a little bit of an improvement when we got in those higher belt tensions. We can see in the lower speed, so the structural one, that the quality is getting improved in comparison with the old one, but we are suffering in artifacting when we are going into the higher speed. So it's a little bit of a balance. If you are mainly a structural printer guy, then you want to get those belt tensions up. The only thing is that we are going to add another artifact. We are getting basically some cross hatching because of the high belt tensions. Is it a fix? I don't think so. We are masking the existing problem with the higher belt tensions, and if you're going to do a high speed print, then it is going to suffer from the high belt tensions. So then we got into the belts and pulleys, and oh boy, that has been quite an adventure. First of all, I have been doing the replacement of the belts and the pulleys about 6 times. Yikes! And the problem was going to be this boy right over here. So this right here are going to be your pulleys. We have the original one on the left, and this is going to be the one that we replaced on the right. After I done the replacement, this was going to be the result. This is 10 times worse than we had with the original Core One, and we can actually feel it's that bad. We can feel the VFA right here on the surface, and not only that, this box is all kinds of twisted and crooked. So I ordered 4 of these new pulleys, and this is going to be from the brand Prusa. Links are all going to be down below. And apparently I got unlucky. One of the 4 that they have sent to me is going to be the same pitch as the original one, so a GT2. So in my printer I had a GT 1.5, and on the other side I had a GT2. This is going to give you this crap result and 6 hours of work to figure out. By the way, shout out to Nathan for guiding me through all of this bullshit. Thanks to your brainstorming, we figured out it was a mechanical issue because we were diving into adjusting the firmware and doing all sorts of crazy shenanigans. It was indeed a mechanical issue. So we replaced the pulleys again with the new belts. And yeah, after some scaling, which I'm also going to show you, now we can show you the results of the GT 1.5 live. And this is going to be the difference. We have the GT2 right here on top, structural profile. We did the same print. This is only with the GT 1.5. As you can see, we also have a cross hatch pattern. And this is also because we have tightened these belts to 93 Hertz. We are going to talk about that later. This is probably a little bit too much for the GT 1.5, but so it took 2 hours 45 minutes at the 60-degree angle, structural profile 1.5 GT, and yeah, the difference is going to be night and day. We definitely got an increase in low speed VFA performance. Even right here on the sides, we can see there is an increase in clarity of the print. And yeah, the cross hatching is something we will talk about later. Then we have another box, 60-degree 1.5 GT structural, but this time at 67 Hertz of belt tension. And this right now is looking a little bit more like the regular VFA, but if we compare it with the old VFA, it is a lot better than it used to be. We only dropped the belt tension, and this is going to be the difference. Right over here we have the cross pattern going on, and on top we can see the cross pattern is completely gone. We switched it out to a more finely rippled VFA. The slow one is on the bottom, the speed one is on top, and we can see the top one, the VFA is completely wiped out, and it is looking like $1,000,000. This was what I was expecting from Prusa from the beginning. So now you have seen the difference between GT2 and GT 1.5. We can see on high speed, the VFA is completely gone. All the weirdness, all the cross hatching, it is all gone. The good thing is also the slow profile got a significant increase in clarity. The VFA is much reduced. It is not perfect. I'm not going to claim it is perfect. However, I want to put the added annotation to it. You should not be printing at 40 millimeters a second. Jesus, this is a Core XY printer. Why the hell are you using 40 millimeters a second on the outer wall? I don't get it. I truly don't get it why you are using 40 millimeters a second. This printer should never be under 80 millimeters a second. And even for me, myself, would never go under 150 millimeters a second. Now, we are dealing with a nozzle system that is lacking in flow, so anything upwards of a 200 will be kind of tricky, especially with the silk filament, but you should never go under 120 millimeters a second to begin with. This is my opinion. You can do whatever you want with my opinion, but I think the structural profile was great. Once we had the bed slingers, we are now dealing with Core XY. I know some of you said it's about quality. Now I think I can get the same quality result, strength, part-wise, dimension-wise, on higher profile speeds than we get with the structural one. It is just wasting your time. To give you an example of how slow the structural speed is, this top right over here is a 1 hour print. This is a speed profile. This right over here is a structural profile, and it took 2 hours and 45 minutes to do the same print. And I bet if I measure it, it is not going to be far off. Now, that was my little side rant about the structure profile. The takeaway is, don't do it, and if you do it, tune your profile to be a little bit faster. Now, the next thing, which is going to be more interesting in my opinion, is the belt tension. Prusa, or Joseph himself, made a post talking about that they are doing some belt tension kind of adjustments. They actually have an auto adjuster. It looks pretty cool. Not sure if we are going to get the results from it, but they are claiming that with adjusted belt tensions and some software changes, they can fix most of it. Well, I did the same, and here are going to be the results. So this one is going to be the VFA testing I did before we did the adjustments. I know it is not a silk one, but it is so bad. You will see what the problem is going to be. And then we went all the way down from 50-ish to in the upper 100s to see how belt tension is going to affect your system. This is also going to be super handy if you are thinking about doing the complete transformation to GT 1.5. I would highly recommend you to do this testing to see what for your printer is going to be the ideal belt tension, because it really looks like that everybody needs a different belt tension. Let's look at the results. This is the original one. This is going to be bigger than this one. This is because we printed this up to 250 millimeters a second, and this one has been kept to, I bet it was around 190. Now let's look at some of the angles. We can definitely see a massive problem going on right over here. Same for this one, even right here on the upper part, we can still see VFA. It is, however, very faint, but I think right until here, which is going to be around the 200 millimeters a second, we can still see VFA. So it's all the way up to 200 millimeters a second that we see VFA before we did the belt conversion. This one is going to be the same. We can see VFA all the way up to here. This one also the same. I can see rippling going on all the way over here. And this one, the 45 degree, is rippling all the way up. This is the 104 one. We started at 40, we ended at 190. What we can see is VFA is actually pretty decent right over here. But we can also see that the top part, so the higher speeds, we definitely see an increased noise going on. And I bet it is from the high belt tension. When we look at the other side, we can see the same. The VFA is pretty good, but we see noise all the way up to the top part of this print. So this is one at 87, and we can see that the clarity right here up top is starting to get better. We are getting rid of the extra noise we added just purely from the added belt tension. Also right over here we can see all the way from 40 to what I think is going to be 120, 130 is going to be a VFA pattern, but everything that is going to get more up top is getting noticeably better. We dropped it down even more to 72. I miswrote myself. It is 72, and we can see that the VFA is increasing ever so slightly right here in the down range, but once we get at the upper range of the speed, the clarity is going way up. Same can be said right over here. The VFA is just as good as gone right over here. The same can be seen right over here. It looks like 72 is going to be around the sweet spot in my opinion. I dropped it down even more to 56, and now we can see it is starting to introduce more VFA or more noise into the print. So 56 Hertz is going to be way too low, and we can see it right here on the print. It is not looking that hot. This is not looking that bad. This is pretty okay, but once we look at the other side, we can see we have definitely added some extra noise or vibrations. The answer is not that simple. Did we fix it? I would say partially. It has made this printer to something that is actually functional and that is now easy to look at with the eyes, which was not the case before the first time I used this printer. So in my case, this is working out to be a great temporary fix before we can see what Prusa is going to do. We could also see belt tension. It is not that easy. With the GT 1.5 core version, we could also see that the higher belt tensions are going to lead to more artifacting than the lower ones. And I guess between 72 and 87 seems to be the bother zone on this printer. So if you're going to do the conversion, make sure to do these VFA tests to figure out what is going to be your ideal belt tension. Let me clean up this surface and I'm going to show you how you can replace your belts and pulleys on the Prusa Core One. Here we have it, the bread and butter of the Prusa Core One. This is going to be the next extruder, and we have to completely disassemble this in order to be able to switch out these belts. So this will now be the 7th time I'm going to do it. So first of all, you want to remove this cover. This cover is right here on the side. Then right here on this side, there will be another cover. You also need to remove that with these two bolts. Then you will need to remove this cable and this cable. These cables all have a little latch, so you have to push down on the latch before you can remove this plug. Same will be true for this side. You will need to remove this connection, the black one. Then we have 3 over here and we have 1 right here in the back. Then you will need to remove these 2 thumb screws, and right over here there are 2 Torx heads, and you will need to remove
those as well, because this plastic cover right over here is holding in all the cables. At this point, you can remove the part cooling fan. There is a bolt right over here and a bolt right over there. Now you need to remove the fan, this bolt and this bolt. Once you remove the fan, there will be 3 bolts right over here. You need to remove all 3 of them. Then you want to pull up this plastic cover where the Bowden tube is connected and remove the Bowden tube. As you can see, you can put on a wrench, so you need to remove this adapter. Right here in mine, it is pretty loose, so it is going to look like this. Once you have loosened all these connections, the extruder should be able to pull out. Just be careful, there are some thermistors everywhere that you don't pull a cable. Once you remove the extruder, there will be 4 bolts holding in this complete assembly to the bearing block. You have a port right over here. This is for the belt tension. Loosen it completely. Same for right over here. There's also a point for your belt tension. You will have to loosen it completely. You will need to remove this panel, which I will circle back to later. Then you can remove this motor. There will be 4 bolts right over here. Same thing is going to be true for this. Now you can go ahead, pull out the motor. You can change out the pulleys, change out the belts and do the whole thing again. The only thing you will need to know is for the belts, you will need to make a loop-de-loop, what I call. You have to put it in, you have to get that little circle of belt, and then you put in your motor pulley between the belt. Then you can tension it. It is going to be a little bit fiddly getting the belts in all the nooks and crannies, but in my opinion, I did it 5 times. It is pretty much fine. The only thing you will need to do is remove all the panels. Now, right here on the left still is a panel that is from the testing, but I will show you how to remove all the paneling in order to be able to get to all the mounting points, for instance, like these motors, because the only way to get out these motors is when these side panels are off. And the reason I took off the top panel is just because it is way easier for me to get on here and to get all my fingers and all the nooks and crannies of this printer. So what I'm going to do now is assemble the printer, and you will obviously have to do it in reverse to be able to replace the pulleys and the belts, but this way you get an idea on how everything works. You will need to get this panel in the state it is hanging on, so you can see the PTFE tube. I didn't remove it. This is also going to hang on for dear life, but now this way you have room to do your work because this panel is no longer in the way. The cutout is going to prevent you to be able to remove this motor. So to remove it, it will be sitting like this. And this whole panel is fastened. These are going to be pop rivets, but these are plastic pop rivets, and the Prusa Core One is covered with these little pop rivets. So this panel is basically completely assembled with all of those little pop rivets. And just like that, the side panel is in. The same is going to be true for the other side. The top panel is mounted with all these torque heads. You have one over here on every corner. So here, here, then right over here on the other side, this side, this side, this side. And then we have a few right here in the back. If you want to put on the top cover, there is a little lip that needs to slide in between 2 pieces of metal. So make sure that you do that. I forgot it, and now I can redo the whole thing. Also in the back are going to be these 3 little pop rivets right here in the middle. The only thing that's going to be left is those panels, and the holes right over here are also going to be with those little nylon rivets like these ones. And just like that, my Prusa Core One is back together minus 2 panels I forgot to add on the tool head, but that's not a biggie. Just like I finished the video, I got an answer from Prusa, from my contact, and he said that they did the same testing in the house and they could see the same outcome, which is good news, which means we are onto something. But he also said that while they came to the same conclusion, it is not the solution that they are looking for the affected units. So units like this one. Now apparently the big boss man himself is overseeing the complete topic, so Joe is definitely and truly aware of the problem. And the only takeaway I can take from this is that they are hopefully doing something about it. It looks like they are taking this very seriously, which is really what I wanted. It really felt like they weren't, but right now the short conversation I had with my contact, and I also talked to Grant from 3D Musketeers, overlaying some of the findings I had, sharing my findings to see if that can help to the cause, and it really looks like Prusa is at least trying to figure out what the problem is, which is what we wanted. We have broken the stagnation, and not going to take credit, but I think the last video pulled some muscles in order to get this VFA issue sped up. So the last thing I want to do is redo the input shaper and do a test sample. We are going to do the same test sample that we have done before, which is going to be that little tower. Then we have something to compare about. So let's run the calibration and do a new print. It has done the input shaping, it is now calibrating all the shapers. One thing I want to add is to get the dimensional stability of your printed parts, you will need to do a code adjustment. I will put on the code right now. You need to put that code in your slicer under the start G-code line. I will put a screenshot on it. You will have to put it once there, and everything you slice from that point will have that little code to make sure that your objects are going to be dimensionally accurate. If you don't do that, your prints will come out too big or too small depending on how the calculation works. We did the compute on the shapers. We can see we dropped some frequency. The belts are pretty loose in comparison with the first time we did it. We are going to accept these shaper values, and now we are going to run a test print. So one problem we have, I can't find this file anywhere. It's only on the stick of the Prusa Core One. The only thing I can do is send the adjusted code for the XY axis manually with the laptop, which means plugging it into one of the ports on the side, then open, I think was Printerface, something like that, then type in the new value of G-code and it will adjust it while it is print. Because I want it to be as comparable as possible, I'm not going to show you how to put Printerface on a laptop connected with the Prusa Core One. It is running a Marlin firmware, so it's basically every Marlin firmware is going to be the same. You connect it over a COM port and then you do all the things to make the thing do the things. Not going to share it all, but yeah, I'm going to make the adjustments with the laptop, do the print, and then we have an A/B comparison between the old and the new. So the printer is heating up. We have connected the laptop and now have a live connection between Printerface and the Marlin that is going to be on the Prusa Core One. I'm going to let it do its initial homing sequence. Then we are going to put in the code, which is going to be the M92X98.44Y98.44. So we will actively see it compensate. I'm going to let it do its first layer and then I'm going to make it compensate for it. The printer is making happy noises, and I could see after I implemented the code in Printerface and sent it to the printer, we have about a millimeter of offset. So if you're not going to do that in your slicer, all your objects will come out shrunk, short, whatever you want to call it. And maybe I want to give some dead advice, and that is going to be the following. If you have a printer just like this one and you are not happy with the performance, it is okay to not like it and let them know it. Just accepting it for what it is not going to be the way forward. You don't incentivize them to do something about it. So by making a bunch of noise about it, we truly let them know that there is something wrong and we want to see it fixed. Now, if I can read between the lines of the answer of my contact, it really looks like they don't want to do any component changing, because if they have to do that, then you have probably the right to return it. They probably want to avoid all of that you are returning the printer, and they also need to ship a bunch of stuff like belts and pulleys to all the people that are affected or want to make the conversion. So that is probably why they are very hesitant to do it. Now, they have admitted that the belt conversion worked, but it is not what they want to use on the infected printers. So yeah, it's going to be unfortunate, because I am really crossing my fingers that they are going to fix it. However, I am very doubtful. I'm gonna call this good enough. Let's compare it to the previous model. Now, would you look at this? This is the VFA of the previous part, and right over here, this is going to be the same part. This is completely VFA free. Same story over here, VFA City. Right over here, the VFA is as good as gone. We have a little bit of a pressure advanced issue right over here. This is not the printer's fault. This is going to be me not tuning for the filament. It's also not possible. I can't find this model to do some tuning on it. So it is going to be the comparison you see right now. But very, very good results right over here. We can definitely see a massive improvement from this part to this part. To give you another close-up look of the previous model to see where the VFAs are, it is really noticeable right over here. We can also really see it over here. The print is just more noisy. This is what we are getting after. We can see there is a lot of artifacting on this surface, and this is actually printed really fast. This was not a slow print, and still we can see there is a massive VFA issue. And when we look at this, it is night and day difference in my opinion. Look at this surface. All the VFA is gone. It is just amazing how clean this Prusa Core One prints now with the belt conversion. So did we fix the Prusa VFA issue? In my opinion, hell yeah, brother. This is looking 10 times better than the previous sample. Also, this part right over here Look at how clean this print is right over here. And this right here is the offset I was talking about. By implementing the G-code, the print moved all the way to the right, and we have a little gap right over here. So here we can see that you actually need to use the implementation of that G-code, or your prints will scale way too small and nothing will fit anymore. Now this part of the print, you can see some banding going on. This is not banding, this is just the filament switching in the nozzle. It is just at the worst angle to see where the color is switching, so that is the effect you are going to see right over there. The main thing is, for me, it works. I don't know if it's going to work for you, so I'm going to reach out to you guys. If you are interested in doing it, then please do it and let me know how that went. One thing I want to add is that you could potentially ruin your warranty doing this conversion. I'm not sure, I didn't ask Prusa, I'm not going to give them any ideas. Just make sure that if you do this conversion, that you put it all back together at the GT2 before you take pictures of your problems. All right? Alright, now we get that figure out. If you actually did it, let me know, put a comment in, mail me, message me, I don't care. Show it to me that it actually works. I have presented all of this to Prusa to show them that the belt conversion indeed has some very positive influences on the Prusa Core One. And the only thing we can hope is that they're going to figure out what the hell is going on with this printer fairly soon. I'm not sure if they are going to be able to fix it with just firmware and belt tensions. I am highly skeptical. I have done all the things they told me to do and nothing really worked. Only the higher belt tensions on the structural profile did something, but then you could see that it also influenced the high speed being more muddy, more noisy, more, yeah, whatever. Let me know down below what you think about this situation. Is this something that you think you would do to fix the VFA issue on your Core One, or are you going to wait for Prusa to do what it needs to do to fix this whole ordeal? Then also a big thanks to the members of the channel for supporting the work that I do. Without the support of my members, these are very expensive videos. Also big shout out to Nathan for helping me out, sending some of the parts to do all the testing so I can present it to you. And now I think we finally have a case to show you that it is not all doom and gloom. We can actually do something about it and we can fix it, hopefully. All right, that's gonna be it. Thanks so much for watching and I see you in the next one.